Sometimes a client might look you right in the eyes, or maybe you get this sinking feeling like this is happening for them, and your client hasn't said it to you explicitly. I'm not ready to change. Most of us, especially when we are invested in doing good work with our clients, when we can see that they are really, truly stuck in their lives, we get a sinking feeling. What do I do with that? And ethically, how do I even navigate that? My answer, typically, and sometimes I actually can catch my clients off guard, and I've heard this from people where they've said things like, when we first started working together, Tim, your positivity, I kind of felt like I couldn't really work with you. And I respect that. Once they get to know me a little better, they'll say things like, I better understand you now. I get that you're not faking it. My response to I'm not ready to change is oftentimes, great, let's start right there. In motivational interviewing and acceptance and commitment therapy, not ready isn't actually a problem to be solved. We don't get fixity. It's a place to connect, to understand what is the function of I'm not ready to change. And when somebody says I'm not ready to change, I don't mean to sound overly enthusiastic even here in this space with you. That's a little bit exciting to me because it shows insight that this person that I'm connecting with has already been reflecting on how their behavior is or is not working. Today, I'm going to show you how these two approaches, motivational interviewing and acceptance and commitment therapy, fit together beautifully, and why you don't have to wait for someone to be ready before you can do meaningful, values-based work. Let's keep it simple. Let's just define what motivational interviewing is. So, step one, motivational interviewing was built for moments of ambivalence. It's not about giving people a pep talk, although I love Ted Lasso, and I could watch that show over and over and over again. It's not about pushing people to the starting line or even using aversive control. It's a conversation style where we can evoke the person's own reasons for change, rather than inserting our opinions, or even offering psychoeducation in a way that kind of nudges them in the direction that they should be changing. We do this, we connect in this conversational style, we evoke someone's own reasons for change by expressing not just empathy, if that's your style therapeutically, developing discrepancies between where they are and where they want to be in their lives. Noticing the difference between those, noticing how things are working and rolling with that resistance. The best metaphor that I can give that I feel that motivational interviewing has helped me as a clinician, as a human being, as a friend, neighbor, father, friend, husband, is to roll with resistance almost like an improv actor saying yes and. So rather than trying to confront or becoming high conflict, supporting others in the sense that they feel stuck, in the sense that they might not be ready for change, that change might be scary, uncomfortable, or even punishing to make changes. My favorite metaphor that I use for this, I swear, this is exactly like verbatim how I describe this. I'll oftentimes say to clients, okay, so just my Allen Iverson moment. We're talking about practice. Okay, so if I go upstairs and I grab one of my guitars and I hand it to you, can you play me the guitar solo to Stairway to Heaven? The answer, usually no, unless somebody's a particularly adept guitar player, in which case, I'll use a more advanced kind of guitar piece with them. But the answer, 99.9 out of 10 times or 100 times is no. And what I'll say is learning how to play guitar is very uncomfortable, okay? And the guitar solo to Stairway to Heaven is not a particularly easy piece of guitar music to play. It requires musicality, a certain level of technical precision. It may not be the most complicated piece of guitar music, but it certainly isn't easy. And learning how to play it, again, is uncomfortable. It hurts your fingers to learn how to play the guitar. It is punishing. And yes, we're talking about practice, because practice oftentimes is uncomfortable. The idea here is that we want to normalize the discomfort in change. We want to make it clear that our learning histories and competency is what informs our ability to be able to make changes, and whether we can even do it easily or at all. In motivational interviewing, you get trained to listen to two types of language: change talk. So these are the verbatim signs that people want to move forward, and sustain talk, the reasons why people want to stay exactly the same, keep things status quo. We don't shut sustain talk down. We hold it with curiosity. We ask questions. What's the function of it? Because it tells us what's important to the person that we're talking to. what's important about not changing. And that's important talk. Understanding what makes changing hard. Why picking up the guitar and playing it is not reinforcing. There's a big learning curve. It hurts my fingers. I have a hard time spreading my fingers and getting coverage over the fretboard. Or it feels awkward. I don't like that it sounds bad. Cool. We have important information about why it's punishing, why it's not nice to change here. And that's gold, if you can work with it. So let's move on to section 2 here. Step 2, I want to talk to you about acceptance and commitment therapy. We know that ACT is all about psychological flexibility. If you don't know much about ACT, check out my other videos on acceptance and commitment therapy, teaching you how to do it, what it is, and especially the theory will help you get really neck deep into this and understand what makes ACT work. Psychological flexibility means helping people open up to their experience, connect here now in the present moment, and to take actions that are congruent with their values, even in the presence of discomfort. Not the conditional agenda, I'll change when I don't feel X anymore. And by the way, clinical pro tip, we know through lots of analysis of motivational interviewing sessions done by contextual behavioral scientists like ACT clinicians who are looking at this research, we know that that conditional agenda is actually predictive of treatment failure within motivational interviewing. The idea that clients will create a conditional agenda. I will change once I don't have to feel X anymore. I can stop engaging in, let's say, chronic substance misuse, numbing out in my day-to-day life once I don't have this overwhelming feeling of dread. And I want you to notice that ACT, once we know what that sustained talk is, we can use ACT to get deeper, to better understand not just what are you trying to avoid, but we can use processes like acceptance to work with that pain that humans would naturally want to avoid. We can use cognitive diffusion to help see it as a separate thing and understand new ways that we can work with it. We can practice being in the present moment to make it not just more tolerable, but to show that as that stress goes up, we can be present with it, and maybe it peaks, maybe it sustains and it feels like it's unbearable, but we can learn new ways to interact with it. We can see ourselves as the context of our experience. You are not this desire to, let's say, numb out. You are not your pain. You are not your trauma history. It's an experience that you have, but it's something that you can notice. It's something that you can learn to work with. You get to observe that experience. And when we do things like values authorship or clarification or just any values work, hey, what's important to you about this? And that might even right there be quite evocative in and of itself. To be able to sit down and say to a client like, okay, so you're not ready to change, but what's important to you about staying exactly, keeping things the way they are, maintaining status quo? Why does that matter to you? You might be surprised at the answers that you get. And then once we take time and we have patience to understand that, you can maybe even be a little bit more evocative. Okay, what would be important to you about change? Why does change even come with discomfort in the first place? What have you been mortgaging? What have you been missing out on? What do you value? What do you care about that you've lost contact with because you're not ready to change or because you haven't been able to change? We work where our clients are at in real time with whatever thoughts, feelings, sensations, memories, urges are showing up for them in the moment. That's why I love the marriage of acceptance and commitment therapy and motivational interviewing. They just work together so nicely. Okay, so step 1, we know what motivational interviewing is. Step 2, you know a little bit about ACT. Now let's actually start integrating the two of them and finding a little bit of a sweet spot in how we can augment motivational interviewing with acceptance and commitment therapy, or for my acceptance and commitment therapy seasoned clinicians out there, what we can use from motivational interviewing to help us sharpen our tools to deal with ambivalence and resistance a little better. This is where things get interesting. Motivational interviewing's evocative, natural fit with ACT values work brings clients to not just notice what matters to them in their life, but to name it, to specifically make it concrete, to make it real. When they start talking about what real values look like, we also touch on pain. Because what matters is what hurts. What hurts is always connected to things that matter. When motivational interviewing encourages us to roll with resistance, that connects beautifully with ACT dignifying the pain that we feel that's non-negotiable with acceptance and diffusion, to see it, to distance ourselves from it, to see what happens when we really get caught up in that pain. Oftentimes in supervision, I find that ACT clinicians struggle with how to dignify acceptance in a client's life. Oftentimes they'll make it akin to almost toleration. And clients will naturally misunderstand the word acceptance to mean, okay, I got to put up with this. I can't get rid of it. Or they'll even just call us out like, that is not a sexy product. Yes, of course. But with motivational interviewing, rolling with resistance and saying, yeah, of course, your learning history doesn't set you up for success here. That's a great way to open an inroad into practicing acceptance. Of course, you don't want to change. This pain is non-negotiable. You haven't figured out how to get rid of it. What if we try something different? Could you do it right now in session with me? And notice how evocative this sets us up to create beautiful out-of-session homework. Notice when you can hold this pain in your life. Notice when there is not a snowball's chance in hell that you could hold this pain in your life. Come back, report to me about it. Notice it, pay attention to it on purpose. So now we're using psychological flexibility processes of paying attention on purpose in the moment, out of session, to inform how our clients are paying attention to their experience. And more contact with our experience, noticing it, creates more psychological flexibility, more opportunities to get to know it, to diffuse from it, to see what would have happened if they got caught up in it, times where they weren't caught up in it, and new ways to interact with it. ACT adds depth to motivational interviewing by bringing it alive through experiential work. Instead of only talking about our values, we can guide our clients through whether it's meditative exercises, experiential exercises like a tug of rope, using the hooks metaphor, one of my favorites, to let someone feel the actual pull of what matters to them, to be evocative in session, to make the content of what we talk about here, live in the room, as relevant and direct to the client's life as possible. Or as I like to say when I work with really stuck clients, the room suddenly feels like it gets really small because we're not talking about big concepts and PTSD and pain as a large topic in their life. We're talking about specific instances where these symptoms, where these reactions show up in our clients' lives. It concretizes, makes the work feel more real, but it also touches the hearts of our clients because we're speaking to them exactly where they're at in their lives. It makes the work practical, experiential. I also want to touch on the idea that motivational interviewing offers ACT a conversational map, a way to move from exploration into self-generated, like things that clients can come up with themselves live in vivo in the session, that are commitments without jumping ahead of the client's readiness. Clients can self-author what change can look like in these little micro tectonic plate, small movements in the session, out of session, in their lives, in situations that are really high stakes and evocative, and maybe they don't want to take too many risks, situations that aren't as high stakes, aren't as evocative, where it's easier for them to come back and decompress, debrief, and talk about them. In motivational interviewing, you might ask a client, what's important enough to you that it could be worth making a change for? In acceptance and commitment therapy, we would follow that up. Do a values card sort. Shameless plug, I'd like to recommend app.thezensocialworker.ca to use those values cards. Maybe do a values card sorting activity, or a metaphor like the passengers on the bus, to actually bring the work alive, to show clients how they see, how they hear fear, doubt, shame, the voice of pain actually controlling and manipulating throughout their day. When we see those passengers on the bus, they don't have to control us. We can learn new ways to interact with them, or they don't have to cause us to crash the bus because we're not paying attention to the road and we're screaming at the passengers that we don't want on our bus. When you pair motivational interviewing's decisional balance with ACT's willingness work, the psychological flexibility, we look at two sides of a coin while gently asking, if pain is a part of the process, could it still be worth it? And the answer doesn't have to be yes. That's the best part. That's the exciting early stage work here that we get to do, where motivational interviewing can augment ACT and where ACT can deepen motivational interviewing. So the next time that you hear something like, I'm not ready for change, try this. Pause. If you want to smile inwardly, you don't have the enthusiasm of Tim, I get it. Slow down. But start there. Start with the I'm not ready to change. If you suspect it's something that your client is experiencing, pose that to them. Hey, I kind of have a hunch. I feel like you're not really ready for change right now. Would you say that's accurate? Readiness isn't a doorway that clients have to walk through before you can begin good therapeutic work. It's a moment rich with information. Information that instructs us on what matters, but the flip side of what matters, what hurts. It gives us options for what's possible, for what feels impossible. And when we get evocative and motivational interviewing, and we tie that together with psychological flexibility, that moment can turn into something new that can change lives. If you've been blending motivational interviewing and ACT in your work, I'd love to hear from you. Drop a comment below. I'd love to hear your examples. And don't forget, if you want more videos on integrating ACT into your approach or even other approaches, leave a comment. I want to hear from you. Don't forget to like and subscribe. It's reinforcing to me and makes me want to make more of these videos for you. To all the helpers out there, I see you. It's hard work, but we all know it's worth it. The world can be a better place through our work. Keep doing it.